Hey, good evening.
Good evening, Brett. So who is leading the discussion here?
So I will be facilitating the discussion. So you'll just have to bear with me. There's a lot of back of house logistics with all this the meeting tonight. So bear with me. I will try to do my best to keep us on track and focused. Let me just check the list here. Make sure we have everyone.
I assume you want our cameras on too. It seems less disconcerting that way.
Yeah, I think that would be good to see everybody's faces.
Susan, I'm not turning my camera on.
Susan, or I'm not sure who that was. Hello,
It was Jerry.
Geraldine.
It was Jerry.
I'm just a neighbor. I'm just I'm so but I'll participate. I was in the last year and a half long.
Actually, everyone turn their cameras off, and then you can pretend that you're an APS teacher, because that's what we see mostly.
There you go.
All right, so forgive me, I've got multiple things moving around here. For those that have joined the breakout room, thank you. Again, thank you for your participation as part of this process. My name is Brett Wallace. I'm Arlington County staff. I work in the planning department, and I'm also the PFRC coordinator for the project, working alongside with APS staff for the project. So again, I want to welcome you guys this evening to the breakout room. The room should be a mix of both PFRC and both BLPC members. I'm not quite sure. I can't see everybody who's in the group, but I want to just remind everybody that the focus of the discussion will be focused on the BLPC and PFRC members, and the public comment will be towards the end of the meeting this evening. So I would ask for the members of the public just to observe and certainly hold any comments until the end of the meeting, as Mr. Stockton indicated earlier. I think what I'll do is I've got some materials that we're going to review. We had two topics that we're going to review as part of the breakout group, as part of the site layout and design, and then the transportation. So I'm going to share my screen. So bear with me for a second. I'm going to bring up the site design diagram that was shared earlier. And I've got a couple of questions that we'll run through. And so just so you know, each of the breakout groups are pretty much reviewing the same materials and have the same questions. And there'll be a report out at the end. So can folks see the diagram?
No. There we go. Now we see it.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So as Mr. Chambers from APS pointed out earlier, this was the preliminary site plan diagram that the school board provided direction on, with the new Career Center building being along South Walter Reed Road, with the existing Career Center building remaining in place with future plans that are TBD. The field location along South Highland Street, the Montessori Public School. We talked about the playground that's associated with that school, and then the parking structure, the above grade parking structure that's proposed along 9th Street. We can come back to some of the highlights of the site plan, which I think were pointed out earlier, but maybe just bear with me as I scroll through some of the stuff that you just saw here. Just a couple of the massing views. So the first view on the left is the view from Walter Reed looking to the west. So you can see the new Career Center building and the field there along Highland, and then another massing view from the east looking back from the Montessori Public School. And we can certainly come back to these. I know you're just probably seeing some of this information for the first time this evening, so this is just a recap of what we just heard briefly. Some of the transportation background, the main entry would be shown to the new Career Center building on Walter Reed Drive. And the bus operations would occur on a private drive on site that would be accessed from Highland Street, as you can see with the purple arrows there. And again, parent pickup and drop off, not specifically identified at this point. And then the on-site parking would be accommodated with that above ground parking structure that was shown on Highland and 9th Streets. So we talked earlier about we're really holding up the principles of civic design that were established by the PFRC when it's related to civic values and building orientation and placement. So there's a couple of key points here, and we'll discuss those as we look through some of the questions. But again, looking at some of the transportation goals that were stated earlier about the safety of the students, right-sizing the Career Center transportation infrastructure, minimizing impacts, and looking at potential concerns and issues. So I think with that, I'll skip over all this, and we can certainly come back to it if there are questions. But I think our main task for this breakout room is to kind of go through some of these questions that I have shown on the screen here. So we'll start with some of the siting questions with regard to the height of the new Career Center facility. So maybe I'll just open up by just asking, are there portions of the building that were shown in blue, and I can come back to the massing diagram, that could be adjusted, for example, built taller in exchange for more open space on the site? So maybe it's better if I just scroll back up to the massing diagram. But again, we're looking at getting input on the massing, particularly the portions of the building that are shown in blue, if they could be adjusted as in increased height to allow for more open space. And I apologize for scrolling through here. Hopefully I'm not giving you vertigo here.
And Brett, I have to ask, chat's been turned off, so how do we ask questions, or how are you expecting us to give you feedback on that?
Is my note taker in the room? Because I'm not able to see the chat while I'm sharing my screen. Because I would rely on.
Chat's been disabled for this meeting.
Okay, so then I would just ask that you jump in, but let me just first confirm. One moment, apologize. James, are you on the call? James from APS?
He's not.
Okay, great. Okay, well,
if I may, the meeting is recorded, so
sure.
it can be post-processed if feedback is provided. Just normal speech.
Breakout rooms are generally not recorded. Just the main meeting is recorded.
No, the Takas is right. The breakout rooms are being recorded. So I had no idea that my note taker was not on the call. So these will be recorded and posted. So any feedback that's received just verbally, again, we'll make note of it. So I think maybe we're gonna have to just play it by ear and just, if folks have comments or questions, just please jump in.
If I can just press on that point, have you recorded breakout rooms before in Teams? Because we have not, as teachers, been able to do that. That's not a capacity that we have.
Yeah, so from my knowledge,
I'm sorry.
yes, yeah. So APS is facilitating this meeting via Microsoft Teams, and from what I've been told, that the breakout rooms are being recorded. And actually, I can see the little time clicker in the upper left of my screen that it's That's
That's
already
the
being
recording for the main meeting. So what it's recording is just an empty room with no one in it. I mean, I'm just saying, if it's important to you that the breakout rooms are being recorded, that is not a capacity that Teams has up until today had. So, my feeling is the recording that you're seeing, the recording sign is the main meeting that we're in. That's why it says 38 minutes, not this room. So
okay.
I offer that for your consideration.
Thanks.
So,
Well, I'm going to pull out. While
Brett, I saw the warning that the meeting is recorded, but however, if everybody is okay, I can record the meeting on my private phone, and since it's basically oral, I can offer that as a backup.
yeah, I mean, that's helpful if everybody's okay with that. And I'll do my best to take notes as well. Going back to the first question.
Yeah, I'll also help with the notes if I can, but it'd be good to have a little bit of a backup with Arlington Public Schools as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. And again, my apologies. Okay, so going back to the first question, hopefully folks can still see the screen. The question was asking if, additional height should be considered for some of the areas shown in blue for exchange for additional open space or other site opportunities. And so I have those views shown up on the screen. Anybody want to jump in?
I'm raising my hand. I don't know if you can see it, and I think Nick is too. So do you want me to just give you my comment fast?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I live on Garfield and 8th, and I'm sorry, yeah, Garfield and 7th Street right there, right? And so my house doesn't look at that, but I am pleased that there's a little bit, that looks like a green area on the right-hand side of the picture, which says Massing View from the Montessori School. So can you just it looks like that area in the between the Montessori School and the new, facility is green area, which is awesome. And then it looks like it's 1 story up and there's a green area. Can you just tell me what that is in terms of the massing? Because I like the fact that it's not a 5-story building that faces those 2 houses, but I can't tell what it is. Is that a 1 story?
Can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Okay. Are you talking about this?
Yeah. So that the houses that are across the
Okay.
street facing it south, what do they see? Is it it's better than a parking garage, in my opinion. And again, I'm not representing anybody. I'm just a neighbor, but can you tell me what it is that they see from that small picture?
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's not heights or stories provided on these diagrams provided from APS, but it looks to be about a 2 to 3 story
Well,
massing there with a potential green, maybe a green roof or some type of amenity space, outdoor, space on the rooftop of that portion of the building there.
it says in the preliminary design that it steps down to a 2-story building at that point. So at least from my interpretation, I was assuming that portion there on 7th and Walter Reed, I'm sorry, 9th, 7th and Walter Reed was going to be a 2-story portion. To answer your question, though, as representing Arlington Heights here, there are a lot of concerns about it being the building being too tall. No, back when we did the original, BLPC, and when they proposed that 7-story building over there near the AT&T building, there were a lot of unhappy faces of something that tall there. So while I think a lot of people love the idea of going a little higher to save footprint, going much more than your 5, I think you might get a lot of pushback from the neighbors.
Yeah, I think the 2 seems very good, given, we don't have a lot of choice.
Yeah, I think you might get pushback that they like that step back to go a little further if possible. Which, but like that's only about maybe 2 houses depth there that you have that the current step back is on the 7th and Walter Reed corner is, but it's if that's as good as we can do. But I think the feedback from the neighborhood would be like to see it a little more. Also, there's feedback from talking to people who with Fleet, been over there. There's a lot of people concerned about how tall Fleet is compared to TJ, and you're gonna have the same scenario here. You're gonna have this 5-story building right next to MIPSA, which is gonna make MIPSA look like this dwarf little building. And I know we're not talking about MIPSA, whether it's there long term or whatever, but it's gonna be there from the beginning, and you're gonna have a building towering over it, which is gonna look strange.
Okay. Yeah, and I can confirm, again, I can't tell from the diagram if that's 2 or 3 stories, but we'll confirm that. Okay. Any other thoughts?
I had a question just as I was taking notes. You suggested that there could be you'd like to see that step back from 7th and Walter Reed go farther down Walter Reed. If that happened, would then it be amenable to go up a little higher, even though, but have the step back farther? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know it's one of those. I personally would be fine with going lower, but as a neighborhood, I think like I said, 5 stories is probably about as high as you're gonna find most people being happy with there. Because you've also the apartment complexes across the street are only what 2 stories, maybe 3, and so you start to dwarf everything around you. We already have to deal with the AT&T building, and if this was closer down to that corner, I don't think people would be so concerned about the height. But
Yeah, Prescott.
right there near the houses, you get too much higher, it's gonna be a problem. So.
He's got 2 daughters, right?
Yep.
If I could ask others on the call just to mute your microphones, please. Thank you.
Chris, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So I'm hearing mostly concern about the heights there towards 7th Street along Walter Reed, that maintaining a 2-story height versus a 3-story height, and the potential for the massing of the Career Center building to kind of what I'm hearing dwarf the massing of the Montessori school. Just to consider those points.
Correct. Yes.
And I'll
Okay.
add, because I was on the 1.5 year long team as well. The only other thing I remember we talked about when you had a school that close to the Montessori, there were some people that were concerned about the proximity of high school students to kids who were K-5. So that's fine. I think that this is done. There's no way we can change it, but I do wonder, it's separate from the setback, but it is questioning sort of what the high school students will be able to see. And how much privacy the younger kids will get. The way it is there, I just can't tell because you can't really get a perspective of how big that field is. But I'll just mention that was something that was raised last time, and we didn't face this last time. Montessori wasn't going to be this close to a new structure, so it is all new.
I did ask that. I'm Kathy. I am the principal of the Montessori school. So I did ask Jeff Chambers that question because we did take a walk around the building, and the playground will be relocated to like the other side where the baseball field is now. And so there will be, I believe it's fenced in. Or there's some kind of like natural barrier there, so the kids wouldn't even be going out that door anymore.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the green space on top of the building, that's great for the students. It really doesn't help the community much in that we're not going to get up there and use it on off hours. So how are they reflecting that in their thinking? Are they thinking that's part of a community asset to have green space on top of a building?
That's a good question. I'm making note of that, and certainly relay that back to the APS staff if that was considered.
I would guess it's an asset for those of us that work and go to school in the building.
Yeah,
Which is-
absolutely.
yeah.
And it would be nicer to
Oh,
look
yeah.
at some, yeah.
No, I definitely agree. It looks nice. I prefer that than a standard concrete ceiling. I just want to make sure that when they're looking at it saying they're offering things to the community, that's other than visually, that's not offered to us as relaxation space because we won't be able to use it when the school is not in session. So it's just want to mention that.
No, thank you. In the interest of time, I know we'll need to move on to the next question. It seems like if we looked at A and B, are there other suggestions that staff should consider regarding the height of the building? I think I've heard a few comments already, but is there anything additional before we move on to the next question about the parking structure?
I have just one question about if they're going to be elevators. I'm not sure. This was an issue for my daughter at Washington Liberty. I think they only had 2 elevators. One broke once, then another one went out. They had 3 kids that were, had movement issues and 2 kids with broken legs. 5 stories is high. So does this involve anything with elevators, or how are you guys going to move kids?
I would imagine that there would be elevators within the interior of the building that would provide access to the upper stories. Yes.
And I think the stress to be there, elevators with an S, because Fleet had just one, and when it broke down, you couldn't get up to the 4th floor. And so make sure they have plenty of backup elevators and spread across the building so it's more usable.
Okay. I'm making note of that. I'm hearing a lot of comments about some of the lessons learned from Fleet. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so why don't we move on to the next question on the parking structure that's on 9th and Highland. So the first question, looking at the parking structure or garage placement on 9th Street, what works? What are the challenges or other concerns? And then I guess the second part, are there other suggestions that staff should consider when refining the parking structure? So I'll scroll back to the diagram. But I guess if there's any thoughts, concerns about what's maybe working, what's not working with locating a above grade parking structure that's shown in the tan color there on 9th Street and Highland. I'll just open it up. Feel free to just jump right in.
So-
Mine's not about the placement or the design, but about the usage of it. So what are the number of spaces relative to the number of employees on the campus?
And that's the critical question.
So just to answer the first part of the placement from a community perspective, really on that, if you're going to do an above ground parking lot, there's no other place on that campus that makes sense, because that's right across from the other one. So the one that ACDC has, so it's the best location to put it. And so I would not advise putting a above ground parking anywhere else on that plot. So. And then yes, but that is the $1 million question is, do we have enough parking for all the facilities that are going to be there? That includes both the schools, the library, and the staff and visitors.
Right. And there had been discussions in the last 1.5 years about, and again, I hope it's done, which was, let's provide more incentive for teachers to carpool and stuff like that. And there was so much good information from teachers saying, hey, we don't live here all the time. We have to come from far away. It's not going to be practical. So as a person who knows teachers, I would like to see enough parking for teachers. Make that something that they don't have to fight over. There definitely should be enough parking for the library. And then if you're moving the alternative high school offsite, there had been an argument about saying, hey, make sure you have some parking spots for some students who are alternative students that have to get to a job. But is it my understanding that that whole thing that's not an issue anymore? Is that correct?
What was the last thing? What's not an issue anymore?
Well, if you move the Arlington Community High School offsite to a different place in 2023, when we were doing this before, the argument was, hey, you got to have some student parking just for those high school students who are in their 20s who have jobs to go to. I don't think that's an issue anymore if this facility is being moved. Is that correct? Because regular high school students, I don't think they need any parking. I think they take the bus or they don't, that's my opinion. I don't think we have to I would rather give it to staff.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't have anybody on the call from our Department of Environmental Services Transportation group, but I think other than what's labeled here as 400 parking spaces in the garage, I believe that is sufficient to accommodate all users, the teachers, staff, and students. But I'll make a note of that to confirm as we continue to work through the transportation analysis, because I know the parking was a big topic of concern in the previous process. So I will have to go ahead. Yep.
And as you mentioned earlier, yes, lessons learned from Fleet. we still struggle at Fleet to get substitutes and everything. And I'm sure TJ has the same problem because they share the same parking. And so we need to make sure that there is ample, and not just for the teachers that are there currently, but you need to bring in temporary staff sometimes that they're not going to be taking the train. So they're going to drive because they need to get there as fast as possible and such. And then plus you got the extended day staff that comes in middle of the day to start taking over the afternoons and such. So you've got a lot of staff that's there that we got to make sure there's plenty of parking for them.
Understood.
For the record, I bike. Many of my Arlington co-teachers bike and take the bus, but also many teachers don't live in Arlington, and those are people for whom they really need parking.
But biking when it's thundering and storming and raining.
Obviously,
There are
there's
days.
under
There
which
are
I don't,
days.
just saying that there is a substantial effort among the faculty to use alternative means to get to school. It's not everyone driving 2 blocks in their car.
Right, but if you need the spot, I want to make sure it's there for you.
Thank you.
So just in terms of siting, it sounds like what I'm hearing, it sounds like this is the best location for siting up above ground parking structure versus what was proposed in the previous process, which was closer to the residential on 7th Street and Walter Reed. Is that correct? Am I hearing that this is, if we were to do this is the best location to do it?
Right, yeah, that the decision to have that surface lot they were talking about over there on 7th and Highland was not looked at all highly at all by the neighbors. They don't want to have that directly across the street from them. So down there is better. I do see the fact that it makes it a longer walk for people to get around. There's going to be perceivably an empty skeleton building sitting there between them and all the actual usable space. So that's something to think about. But that'll have to be solved sooner than later, but not at this call.
You
Sure,
make a
and
good
of course,
point, though. I think that you need to make sure that there's really good handicap accessible ramps to get either students or staff over to that high school quickly.
Right, actually, that's a good
Right.
point. What are they talking about for accessibility parking? I know that they're working on the Walter Reed parking, and they're putting that bike lane on Walter Reed. Are we working with the county to make sure there's plenty of accessible parking right there in front of the school? And same with we're
I'm
taking.
sure there are codes about the number of and proximity of handicap parking in a public facility like this.
Yes, but it's for
probably
the
don't need-
campus. It usually falls on the campus, not necessarily the physical building. And so putting 30 handicap spots in the lot might fulfill those requirements, but not fulfill actual usability. They did that again, talking about Fleet. They put handicap spots in the garage, and then they found out that there's no elevator. So how do you get them out? So they had to then actually go back and add spots along the street for them over the last year and a half to solve that problem. So we want to make sure that this is done with common sense, not just because it meets the letter of the law. And same with for Montessori, we're taking away the entire parking lot during these phases. They need to make sure they've got spaces available assigned to them somehow for accessibility. I know we're not discussing Montessori, but we are removing their parking. And so they need to have accessible spots for them as well.
Good points, yeah. And I know that APS has indicated here with one of their bullets, the third bullet below the diagram, that the pickup and drop up hasn't been identified at this point, but I think these are good points to raise. Again, I'm familiar with some of the concerns over Fleet with the ADA parking and some of the streetscape modifications that have been done over the past year. So thank you for raising that. Yes, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Brett, one other thing, are you guys going to ensure, because I know that the McDonald's right up the street was renovated in the last year, and part of the reason it was renovated, I heard, was to decrease the amount of homeless that were there at night. Will this parking garage, because that's a block away, will it have the really high, so nobody can crawl in after hours? Because I think the neighborhood would want to know that that facility is going to be safe for us, and we don't have to worry about people going in there, or students or whoever hanging out to smoke pot. I don't care. Just, is that something that can be conveyed?
Yeah, I'm sure security is a big concern with APS, and that could be addressed, I think, through design, whether it be through call boxes or cameras or some type of security guard or,
No, it's just, you just raise up the sides. You have to, you have to
Yeah.
have the sides so people can't crawl in.
okay, okay, I get you.
And when they proposed the lot over there to be on 7th and Walter Reed, they had discussed making sure that they would have walls on the sides and making it look right. So I hope they just don't forget that part. I want to make sure that's
Yeah.
put in there when they finalize designs.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. I think from an urban design perspective, I mean, we would want to ensure that this parking garage has good active frontages. It doesn't feel dark and unsafe. It's very well lit. You know, it's, again, trying to make it fit in as best as possible within the context. I mean, I know, considering, I don't know if there's anybody in the breakout room that lives along South Highland Street that would be facing this garage, but I think we'd have to consider views from those residents. If ensure that there's adequate, you know, buffering space for any kind of landscaping or screening, or so there's a lot of, I think, considerations for a structure like this in a high, you know, highly visible location.
I think South Highland Street is on the other side by the field.
Well, South Highland Street does have the duplexes that will face. There's a handful of duplexes that will face the parking garage.
Yeah, on the corner, yeah, on 9th and
Yeah.
there will be
Right there.
some, yeah, some duplexes that face the
Mm.
garage.
We definitely want to make sure we don't, you know, totally uglify their view. Also, I think you'll
Right.
get some community pushback to make sure the setbacks are equal. So, which we always, every time there's any construction, we always hear about the setbacks. So,
Okay. All right, well, let's move on because I think we're a little bit behind schedule, and that's fine because we're okay. Let's see. Question number 3, strengths and concerns with preliminary site plan. Identify any additional strengths and concerns with the preliminary site plan that are not addressed in the responses to questions 2 or 3 above. So is there
I kind of commented
anything?
on one is the biggest, you know, I think weakness right now or concern I have with the current plan is the fact that you're going to have this skeleton, you know, empty shell of a building sitting between the parking and all the facilities that actually are being utilized. So it's, you know, it's just kind of a weird concept that you're gonna have parking over there and everyone has to walk around an empty building to get to, you know, MIPSA or to get to the, you know, the new building. So, but
Yeah.
at the current staging for this group, sounds like we're not discussing that facility.
Right, yeah, the future repurposing of the existing building is another process to be determined in the future with school board direction. But I can see that I guess what I'm hearing is a little bit of a disconnect between the parking and the new building trying to traverse, you know, I think I know what you're saying.
It makes it look a bit haphazard, the whole design, that you're going to put this over there to solve the parking problem and then leave this unused space and be disconnected from everything, with then at the same time with no plan on what we're doing with that facility. So as a neighborhood, you know, we'd like to know what's going to happen with that building. Is it going to sit there for the next 25 years? Is it going to sit there for the next, you know, 20 months afterwards? You know, what is the plan for the facility? Because it becomes this weird disconnected, you know, campus.
I have one last point about the site plan. And Kathy, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, you might be able to address this. You know, the pickup and drop off, or most likely the afternoon pickup along Highland Street is pretty onerous. And, you know, it's difficult for other users of the campus to get out, whether by bike or by car. People are double parked along the length of Highland and, you know, kids are running out and cars are pulling in and out. So is that like the permanent drop-off space, or is this a need of your school that could be met sort of, I'm looking at the drawing, entering between the playground and the parking garage and incorporating that parking garage as part of your pickup plan instead of, you know, shutting down all of Highland Street?
I remember asking the question about buses and car riders, and I was if I remember correctly, there was no change to the locations for either.
Okay. Has that been working for you guys, the pickup on Highland?
Depends on the day, and it depends on whether Career Center students park in our on Highland, because they block.
Sure.
What ends up happening is it would be smoother if there was no parking along that area, but people park there, or a lot of times it's just the students. And then the cars, the parent drivers have to go around parked cars, and that always, makes it much more challenging.
Yeah, I had thought it would be sort of a line like it is at many schools where you wait in the line and then you must move forward in the line in the curb lane and then you depart the line when you get to the front. But that's not how it works. People pull out into traffic and they, double park to wait and wait for their kid to run between the parked cars. And it's been quite a daily scene there. So I'm hoping that need for your school can be met in a better way.
Yeah, I don't know what the way would be, but I don't remember hearing that there was going to be any change to that.
Thank you.
Okay.
So speaking, you mentioned the exit of the buses and stuff. So like right now, the Career Center buses, do they come out towards Walter Reed, or do they make a weird U-turn like we're planning on this new plot?
No, they come in straight. So the U-turny thing is a new thing.
So and I'm assuming your buses would do the same thing. You guys have different start and end times, so like you guys would have use that for your buses. But now that you're having all these buses exit on Highland with the cars there for pickup and drop off, are we just gonna have is there gonna be enough space for the buses to turn?
Yeah, our buses now come in through Walter Reed and then go out through Highland. And the Career Center does the opposite of that.
So the buses actually at this point right now, currently, they're already exiting that same spot?
Yeah.
Not for the Career Center. Yeah.
Right. No, I'm just saying general. I just want to make sure, because you got a line of cars, they're waiting to pick up kids. And buses trying to make the left turn or right turn to go around them. It's not exactly a 4-lane highway there. It's fairly narrow.
Oh, that's the way they do it now.
Okay, so it's at least it's proven. It's provenly accessible that way. That's all.
Well, I'll just say everyone's alive so far. That's the best I can say about that scene.
Yes, that's just
Can I ask why they're not going to Walter Reed anymore? And I mean, why can't some of them still go by the library and go out onto Walter Reed? I think the people.
The Career Center buses do go out to Walter Reed.
I mean, in this new design, are they all going out back to Highland, that U-turn, or some of them coming in off Highland and going out and exiting onto Walter Reed? I guess I'm confused about the new picture.
No, I think they do the same thing, because if you look at the 2 purple arrows, it has buses going up on the Career Center side where it is now, and then the right one goes the other way, which is exactly what we do now. So I don't think they changed that.
You're not going to have your Walter Reed entrance anymore. There's going to be a building there.
Right. So I think our buses are going to go around that loop there.
Right. I think both the high school and the elementary school buses will have to loop. That's what the design, I think, shows.
Yeah. And since we have a different start and end time, I'm wondering if that's what they're thinking would, you know what I mean? Like our buses would be coming in after the Career Center is already dismissed and gone.
What is your end time, though? It can't be that different from ours.
It is. We don't dismiss till 3:41.
Okay.
Your buses leave before ours arrive.
Got it. Thank you.
So can I ask then, what is the purpose? If you see the lane of traffic that goes next to off of Walter Reed going west or whatever, and take a right next to the library, what is that going to be used for in the new design then? So the entrance to that space off of Walter Reed, is that going to be blocked off?
That's a good question. It looks like.
Hey, Brett, and this is Jeff. I can throw some knowledge at that we've been talking about. I think it still has yet to be developed. But, we have the opportunity, and we've talked about the opportunity for buses to be able to go straight out onto Walter Reed and make a right from the Career Center. And the Montessori buses would always have to go around the loop One of the things that they're currently having is they have more buses than fit at Montessori, and that loop would actually help with that and keep the buses all on the site and not have them, running out onto Walter Reed as they currently do. But we're not looking at entering that way. The other thing that we've had some discussion on is after hours. Maybe having an auto loop there for use by the library. But again, that all has to be developed. I think at this point, the only thing we know for sure is we want to maintain the buses on the site and keep the cars off as much as possible. But the intent is that we could run like the buses that are bringing students for CTE when they stack in front of the Career Center, the current Career Center, they can go straight out and not have to go around the loop and disrupt anything that might be happening at Montessori, or if Montessori is actually using the field, we would want to try to limit the amount of bus traffic that we would have there if that would be how that site gets used. So it still has to be determined and developed, but the intent was to basically keep buses on the site and provide enough space for them and provide multiple ways out if possible, because Highland Street is going to be busy regardless.
Can I mention one other thing, which is, and I'm happy to hear that you're thinking about the Highland Street, because those folks really are taking a lot of those residents. And that's just a lot of people parking in a lot of buses, and then they might have the lights glaring at them at the parking garage. I would not want to have my house over there. But the third thing I want to mention is if you're going to be adding middle school students, that's a different drop off and pickup time. So has that been considered? So if you're going to end up having high school students and middle school students and K-6 Montessori students, they all have a different time frame.
Well, they actually, it would be like the Heights building and HB Woodlawn, which has middle school through 12th grade. They will have the same time.
So you're saying at HB Woodlawn now, the middle and the high school students all have arrived at the same exact time?
That is correct.
I did not know that. Thank you.
Yeah, and that would happen here as well. And again, we can manage start times, stop times. That's all part of the site management. Because the last thing we want is all the autos showing up at the same time, dropping off kids. At the same time, the buses are all coming. At the same time, the teachers are coming. So we really need to look at how does that schedule work? And that's all. It's not only space planning for traffic. It's also time planning.
I'd like to put my vote in then for the Heights schedule for the Career Center. Thank you. I want that 9:30 start time. Are you writing that down?
No, because it doesn't align with the other schools.
Okay, well, I want to, in the interest of time, move on to question number 4 because we're a little bit behind. Thank you, Jeff, for jumping in there and addressing that question. All right, transportation. Well, we're kind of already on there, but we mentioned the goals for transportation, the safety of students, right-sizing infrastructure, minimizing impacts. Are these the right goals for multimodal transportation on the site? And if not, what should be added or adjusted? So I'll open it up. If you're in agreement, we can move on and talk about other.
I think we've discussed it enough throughout
But
the other.
I mean, I think under that category, I would like noted my concern about the current usage of Highland Street throughout really the course of the day. It's bearing more burden than a public street can bear. And without even concern for how the homeowners feel along that street, just as a public street, it is beyond the breaking point.
Yeah, and somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah, someone is going to get hurt.
Okay. So the final question then, input on the Career Center campus transportation concerns and issues. What additional transportation issues or concerns need to be addressed? I think we've covered several. I've heard loud and clear there's a lot of pressure on Highland Street. Any additional thoughts or concerns to consider going forward?
Is this our last question? Because I am still, and maybe Geraldine, maybe you can talk about this, the PEP program. Are there any transportation needs for the PEP program that haven't been mentioned or considered?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so
What
I
is the
guess
PEP program?
that's the
So-
group of what? Oh, Geraldine, you go ahead.
It's the Program for Employment Preparedness. It's a program for students with autism who have completed their academic preparation and then have a focused program to prepare them for employment after secondary schooling. A component of that is daily internships. So they do come to and leave the building at unusual times and have transportation needs there.
And I just don't know if any of them have, it just depends on the student body, I suppose, if they have any physical disabilities that make it harder to, I just don't know how they get dropped off right now, right to the front of the Career Center, right? So I don't know. I can't remember how the picture looks about how far away the bus will get for those students to get to their entrance.
It sounded like Jeff said that they would potentially be able to go straight forward, so they would hopefully be able to still, get close to enough to the building for like a side entrance there, or such, or wherever the back entrance is before you get to the loading. But I think the bottom line, the comment there is like we just really want to make sure that these facilities are fully equipped to handle any accessibility needs. That includes the parking locations and access to the building from those locations.
Yes, I know that I'm really being a one-note wonder here, but a corollary point to the burden on Highland Street is the need for the elementary school to have a dedicated, safe pickup lane, which I don't see reflected in this plan.
Yeah, that's been a request for that elementary school facility for a very long time, without taking away the blacktop on Highlands portion or doing something on 7th. I'm not sure how they physically make that work.
This is the
I would
plan,
love to see them.
and this
I would
is
love to see them do it though.
This is the time to consider that question.
But I guess that's one thing for your last question is, what I know that again we're kind of told not MIPS is not necessarily fully being discussed in these groups, but we need to make sure we've not destroyed any access they have, and if we can, it'd be nice to improve their parking and their their buses and access to get to their facility. We're gonna rip up this entire physical plot except for those two buildings. Let's do everything we can at the same time.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, accessibility is a huge factor with any site design,
Well,
especially
this is not just accessibility. This is just a safe drop-off lane. Fleet has their little like curve around it. Most people, cars can pull in so they're not on the road. Montessori, even back when it was Henry, has nothing. You just pull off the side of Highland, kick your kid out, and hope that they make it there okay. So.
Yeah, and many people are dropping off on the southbound lane, the side of Highland that does not touch the campus.
Right.
Then the kids run across.
Doesn't matter how many times we tell
I'm
parents
not
not to, they do it anyways.
Excuse me, Nick. I'm not trying to point them on a story. Career Center has the exact same problem, right? People are parking, literally everywhere, inside the ice cream shop, anywhere, and just like, booting out the kid in the middle of the street. And all of this action is happening on Highland. I mean, put a wildlife cam on the side of the Career Center and just look in the morning and see what the scene is along that road. I think the only reason that it isn't part of this plan now is because no one's been hurt yet.
We're describing a ticking time bomb that should be taken care of before it ticks.
Well, I think at 8:30 we're going to be pushed back to the main meeting, so we have some additional time. If there's anything anybody in the room wants to discuss or bring up, I'd welcome that at this point. If you want to come back to any of the other topics that maybe you might want to come back to.
I guess one other comment I was just thinking about is looking at your screen with the site plan. Is the field in the center is going to be split use between the high school and the elementary school, and then there's a playground that's going to be there for the elementary school. But is there is that gonna be enough green space for everyone to work with and share? Because, you know, we're taking from the Montessori's program, we're taking 2/3 of their field, and then we're gonna give them a shared field. Do we need to?
The MPSA playground, it's not showing on here, but they're also going to redo the primary playground that goes up against Highland.
I just know a lot of the kids love to play on the outfield of the diamond during outside recess and such, and you're not going to have that space anymore.
Yeah, but I went over the plans for the playground with Jeff Chambers. It's going to include redoing the primary playground, and there might be a possibility to extend the sides on each side to make it a little larger. It's going to look a little bit like the one that they put in the new oh, I'm sorry, it's too late for me. This is past my bedtime. The new building that McKinley moved into. What is that called?
Cardinal, not Cardinal.
Yeah, it is Cardinal, isn't it? The
Card-
one. Yeah, I went to look at that playground, the way that they structure it with the different areas. It's still going to include a basketball court and playground equipment and some other things. I think it'll be fine.
Okay, I just want to make sure you guys have what you guys need there.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, well then I want to put down a marker for a full-size ultimate frisbee field because that's not regulation.
Yeah, the field that's coming in there now isn't regulation for anything.
Right.
Yeah.
We only have one sport. We only need one field for our one sport.
Isn't that the field that's right there in the middle?
Not the right size for
the right size.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
You guys basically play on the soccer field size, right? It's like a full-size soccer field almost you guys play on. Is that correct? Yeah. And this is, I think, 2/3. It's not even big enough for middle school soccer. It's too small for any level soccer.
So it'll work for ROTC, right? The ROTC kids will be able to go out there.
It's a yoga and ROTC field.
Okay, and can I tell, are there any kind of, so this isn't, there's no bleachers here, right? This isn't going to be a sports field that you're going to have any kind of, so that's interesting. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. It only serves a couple of functions, including for PE, I assume, because I assume these high school and middle school students are still going to have PE. So can anybody from APS who was part of the design comment on what the size of the field was and why you put it that way? Is it just because that's what was left? Which is okay. I mean,
it was what was left over.
Yeah. We're looking at professional pickleball, maybe. Who knows?
I don't see anybody else from APS on. Maybe Jeff jumped out.
But you have a minimum you need for the bus to turn, so you lose that space. They have, and the size of the building was kind of defined by what's going to be in there. So yeah, that's really was just the space left.
Unless you elevate the field and you extend it over the bus loop.
Yeah, and then you shorten, you go up one more story for the 5-story building. I mean, that, you know what I'm saying? If you make the 5-story building taller and you take that back, then you have more space. I have no idea, but.
Or you cut off half of the existing Career Center building and go north to south instead of east to west. But we're not touching that building just yet.
Yeah, see, and I have to say, for those of us who are on this, I am confused about what happened to that Career Center building going away, and I'm confused about the middle school getting added to the new building. And I'm sure that happened in the last fall, I guess, because we haven't had any public meetings, but can anybody comment on that?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
So when I was involved with these meetings for the year and a half, we were only talking about extra bodies for high school students, not middle school students. There was a discussion back and forth if it was going to be the 4th comprehensive high school or if it was going to be a choice high school. That's not what I'm bringing up, but I am really, really surprised about the new, and I've heard we are exploding at the seams for middle school students, so I get it. But this is for the neighbors who have been involved. This is brand new, that the 5-story new building is going to be, now what I understand, a co-located site for the Career Center programs, for the parenting program, for the PEP, for ROTC, et cetera, all of that stuff, along with Arlington Tech now being a middle and high school grouping. Is that correct? And it's all going to be at the new 5-story blue building?
Arlington Tech is a program at the Career Center like the other programs at the Career Center. So none of the programs are, Chris, am I right? None of the programs are changing. All the programs are there, will remain there. And the only change is that Arlington Tech will extend into middle school.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that, I think that part of it is still being discussed. I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's all finalized.
That may not come.
Yeah, but yes, there could be middle and high school students there for Arlington Tech.
Yeah.
So it would be a feeder program for Arlington Tech if they do open it up for the middle schools.
But would that be in the new facility, or are you guys thinking that they might use the old facility for that portion?
I'm thinking it would be in the new facility.
I would hope it's in a new facility because,
it would just be one contiguous program, Nick, just like HB.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then the other programs that are there are smaller programs. I think each of those different programs are under 100 students, if I'm not mistaken.
They are.
So, yeah. So the largest program that would be there would be Arlington Tech, and the students that would be coming for career and technical education during the 3 blocks during the day.
Yeah.
Which are coming now.
So I guess that's one of the questions that I have, having sat on that group for the year and a half, is that my personal opinion was I wanted to protect all the Career Center programs. I don't want to see those numbers for students go down at the expense of a good program, Arlington Tech High School or program going up, right? So that's when I see this, and now you're going to add the middle school. Clearly, the Arlington Tech part is going to become a big part of that facility, right? I would hope that we're going to protect and continue to keep a robust, or even improve and increase the number for students going into the career tech programs and all the other programs that are there. And I just don't hear about how that's going to happen. And if the growth, because I still am confused about where are those extra high school bodies going to come from? This facility was supposed to help the high school facility numbers, not the middle school. So I hope that APS can sort of better explain this to us, because it seems very quick. Does that make sense? Nick, I don't know if you followed it, but I'm surprised and just would like to see the numbers and some assurances.
Yeah, I'd like to see it a little more concretely explained, because at one point they also talked about maybe expanding Montessori into middle school on that site. So there's been a lot of talks about, but nothing has been formally presented until all of a sudden we just were told, oh, middle school is probably going to come into this location, and without better explanation and more detailed concrete numbers. Plus, the numbers that we were talking about for the campus, they kept the numbers from when they were thinking about making it a neighborhood school, and when we had the community high school there. Yet we've pulled out the neighborhood plan, and we've moved the community high school off. Yet they didn't reduce the numbers for that. They've kept the same large numbers. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly where are the rest of these students coming from. If we've already taken off how many hundred for one, and then has said we're not making it a neighborhood school. Are we actually going to get that many people?
Yeah. What's the current does anybody know right now what the current population is of all the programs relative to the 2570 number that was shared?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the total numbers are right off the top of my head for the students that are over at the Career Center in Arlington Tech.
Well, in the instance, if we all get jumped off and pushed back to the main meeting, I just want to thank you guys for your time and your input and patience while I work through some of the questions. So I'm hoping that we have a chance to report out on some of the feedback when we get back to the main meeting, and still have some time left for public comment. But certainly, if you have additional thoughts or comments, you can send them to myself or the APS team, or I believe on the APS website, there's the questions that we reviewed tonight are also on there. You could fill them out yourself and submit them through the Engage APS website. And I don't know whether or not we were able to record this or not, but I tried to take the best notes that I could. But again, thanks for your time.
And for the public people on here who might use that form, it's due by the 2nd of February.